Hello students, I wanted to just kind of give you some support and talk about the sample essays you are working on for your discussion board virtual attendance assignment this week. So let me go ahead, and I know this is Monday's memo, but let me cover a couple of things. So I've reviewed everybody's outline from Sunday, and the kind of takeaway that I noticed that many of you still need to work on, two things. One is the thesis statement, and the second thing is this idea that you are maybe not really understanding what this essay is about. So let's start with that point. This essay it's a persuasive paper. Your thesis statement is going to make a claim. A claim is a statement that can be argued. It has more than one way of looking at it. So it's not factual. It's not like, a factual statement, 4th of July is Independence Day in the United States. That's a factual statement. You can't argue that. With a claim, it's an arguable statement. So you are going to make a claim that your public service announcement, your visual, is either effective or not effective, or only partially effective, whatever you think, based on your review of it. So you are going to make a claim that your public service announcement has some level of effectiveness because of how it employs the rhetorical appeals of ethos, logos, and pathos. In other words, rhetorical appeals of how credible is it, how much true factual statistical information is included, and finally whether or not it taps into the viewer's emotions. So the issue, and all of your PSAs have an issue, because that's what, that's sort of the underlying fundamental of a public service announcement, is it is trying to do something about an issue. For example, drunk driving, or not wearing seat belts, or like secondhand smoke is dangerous. So you all have an issue, but your paper is not about the issue. Your paper is how effective is that public service announcement on a particular intended audience. That's what you're writing about. So your thesis statement needs to, first of all, name your public service announcement. You have to give it a name, or maybe it has a name. You need to say whether it's effective or ineffective on what particular audience. So is this an audience of high schoolers? Is this an audience of military members? And why is it that level of effectiveness? So then you'll say, because of the way it uses ethos, logos, and pathos. All right. So then your first paragraph, if we look at, let me go ahead and pull up our outline worksheet. Many of you did not follow the outline worksheet's requirements, and I really expect that you're going to follow that to a T. Those are requirements. So if I go ahead and I pull up this outline worksheet, okay. All right. So this first paragraph, let me make it bigger. Paragraph 1, you need to hit all of these points if possible. Okay. So what's your hook? Your hook will be probably something to do with the issue. There are a couple of places you'll write about the issue. Your hook, you are going to kind of address, like, why was this public service announcement created in the first place. So with our sample essays, so texting and driving is an important issue. So your hook is going to kind of touch on that. Then you've got to name your image, who did your image, so who authored it, what organization. In the case of our texting and driving sample, it's a combination of BMW and some other nonprofit organization. What was the purpose of the image? To raise awareness about texting and driving and the dangers of texting and driving. Where was it published? When? Get as much information as you can. And then who's the intended audience? Now, for intended audience, it's going to take some thinking on your part. You are going to have to do some sort of guesswork based on, kind of your best information about this image. Where would it have been published? Would it have been digital, print, poster, billboard? All of those factors play into who that intended audience would have been. All right, so you're going to have a couple sentences where you try to lay out who you think the intended audience is. Then finally, you conclude that first paragraph with your thesis statement. All right, we talked about your thesis statement a minute ago. Now your second paragraph, and this is where many of you kind of fell down on in your outline, it has to be a very detailed description of your image. If you go and read that sample essay, the annotated one on texting and driving, that paragraph 2 was really, really good. It was amazing. That is what you're striving for, is something like that. If you looked at the paragraph 2 of the other image, the other sample essay, the one about the plastic sushi, the garbage sushi, that was not nearly as good. It wasn't as detailed. It felt very general. I have 2 other seated classes of 111, and neither of those classes were impressed with that particular paragraph on that second sample essay. And when you read them side by side, it's really obvious. So you are striving for a description of your PSA that is like the texting and driving sample. Right? So if you notice, you're not really talking about your issue. It isn't really to do with your issue. It's to do with the ad itself. So then you're going to spend a fair amount of time addressing each one of your appeals, even if it's not present in your image very much. You have to talk about that. So if logos is not present, and for most of you it's logos, does that make it less effective? Or is that proper for this image because maybe it was going to be published on a billboard, and you can't have a ton of like statistics and things like that on a billboard. People driving by wouldn't have time to read it. It would just clog up that billboard with extra stuff that no one could read anyway because you're driving by too fast. So you're going to discuss each one of your appeals, even if they're not present very much in your visual image. Another thing is what you say in your thesis statement about its effectiveness, that it's highly effective, extremely effective. Then what you talk about has to match that thesis statement. Let me go back to that. All 3 appeals have to be mentioned in that thesis statement. Now you can use synonyms, like in fact it's better. I wouldn't say pathos, logos, and ethos. I would say uses emotionally laden pictures or statistics or credible because of the use of logo. But you want to mention all 3 in your thesis statement, and then the order in which you say it plus what you say must match in the body paragraphs. And then finally, your conclusion can draw a little bit on the issue, why it's an important issue, and that things like PSAs can be effective in making changes. So All right, that being said, go ahead and you want to revisit your outlines. Those outlines are going to be your best friend when you go to write your paper. So here's a couple of other things I saw. I saw a lot of use of second and first person. You and I will take off heavy points if I see use of second and first person in this essay. You need to do a search. I don't know if you've ever done a search and replace. Let me show you on this document. So you want to come over here and do find, and then you're going to type in you, okay, and find all. And see, obviously this has a lot because I'm talking directly to you. But when you're writing an essay, an academic essay, you almost never mean you. Almost always what you mean is some third person, one, people, the audience. It's not you. You is very conversational. You want to work on eliminating that in all your academic writing, not just in English, but in all your classes. Same thing for I. You don't need to put I believe and I think. I know that's what you believe and what you think because you're writing it, and you need to be bold. You need to make a stand and say, this is effective, not I believe it's effective. It is effective because of X, Y, and Z. All right, so feel free to email me, make an appointment to see me, whatever you need. Your rough drafts are due Sunday night, so that next week you can start with your peer review. We're kind of coming to an end with this. This is really the last week you're working on this. Do a really good job with the sample essay discussion board that's due Thursday night for your virtual assignment, attendance assignment. Really looking at those sample essays can kind of shine a light on what works and what doesn't work in student papers. Okay? All right. Bye-bye.